Hi, I'm Faraz Khan from iTrack Recruitment, and welcome to the Low Code Podcast, where we're dedicated to increasing awareness and appreciation of the power of low code. In this podcast, we'll hear from developers about their career journeys and how low code has enabled them to achieve new levels of success and innovation. So let's go. Hi, Isaac, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to take part in the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So we'll start with just tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, a bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. I've been in technology for quite a long time. On a personal level, I live in Tampa, Florida. I have a lot of hobbies. I play music. I'm into fitness. I'm actually a big fitness freak. I play
Oh,
ultimate frisbee on the beach sometimes. I live about 45 minutes from the beach, so there is that. There is certainly that, right? You take the good with the bad when it comes to
yeah.
living near the beach. There's the occasionally discussion about a hurricane. Uh,
Yeah,
if you're on the beach, then the hurricanes threats doesn't seem so bad.
sure.
On a professional level, I have been in like I said, I've been in technology since I graduated college back in a long time ago.
Yeah.
Good long time ago. I started in building code with building applications with code, .NET, C Sharp, some Java, JavaScript, all the standard languages that
Mm,
most people would be familiar with in building applications, as well as some enterprise tools for integrations like BizTalk and
mm,
Embarcadero and others. Um, that was before Loco.
yeah.
So in 2000 through 2012, I was building projects, mostly working with consulting organizations as well as
Mm,
a couple of software shops. So I got very, very familiar in the high code
mm,
space, like mostly on the Microsoft side,
yeah.
doing integrations, working in large data management projects, occasionally the application development projects with websites, e-commerce, and
Mm,
others. Um, and in 2012, I was approached by at the time, a very small organization called
mm,
OutSystems to be a sales engineer in the US, one of the very first US based sales engineers. And I thought that was very interesting. I had heard of a little bit of low code
mm,
even then, but I, also heard of tools like Microsoft Front Page and Home Site.
sure.
So I was naturally a little bit skeptical.
Mm,
But I was invited by the recruiters to take a look. There was a
mm,
free version out there back then. There still
yes.
is today, of course. And
Yes.
I built a demo. It was terrible. It was a terrible demo. But at the same time, the power was in the journey, the journey for building something, and I found myself getting really excited about the tool.
Mm,
So, having been in software development and delivery for a long time and doing other things, this just sort of broke open a new
yeah.
realm of stuff that kind of made sense to me as a software developer, knowing all the different components that are needed. So at OutSystems, I was a sales engineer for a good couple of years, doing demos after demos after demos, and working with clients, helping developers understand what is the
Mm,
possibility of, what is the value proposition that OutSystems brings.
mm,
And I ended up getting so into the tool, I started doing training, right?
yeah.
Week-long boot camps, and as well as expert services and
Yeah.
architecture services as well. Um, since then, I pivoted back into low code with another tool called Appian in 2016, and noticed that there was a significantly different focus, while the same goals wanted to be achieved.
Yeah.
Our systems were building applications with low code. With Appian, they also wanted to build applications with low code,
Mm,
a little bit newer to the space than our systems,
yeah.
and yet there was a singular focus on making things easier for
Mm.
developers to do it, building out a community for developers. And so um, that also, considering their heritage in BPM and process
Mm.
management, making those significantly easier was also pretty groundbreaking. And so I was with them for several years, and also experienced the joys and challenges of working with partner technologies,
Yeah.
in RPA and IDP, intelligent document processing, and
Mm.
bots, and other technology that, straight up application development might not necessarily be well equipped to
Mm.
handle.
Mm.
Today, I'm a principal solution architect, and I still look around at things from a low code perspective, and I
Yeah.
complain heavily when it's not. If it is
Yeah.
on code, I tend to complain.
Yeah.
There should be abstractions. There should be ways to make this drag and drop and
Mm.
configurable, because that's been my life. Things made sense to me, and
Yeah.
so if it doesn't. It's quite frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here I am today, and I still look at things from that low code bias,
Yeah.
where things should make sense to me. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid OutSystems and Appian have done that to me.
Yeah. That's amazing. And rewinding back to kind of, you had kind of this high code experience, and you said 2012 kind of OutSystems came across to you. At the time, kind of, I know you said you'd heard of low code. Had you heard of OutSystems itself as a company, as a technology?
Uh, Not until I was approached.
Okay, fine.
I did some extensive research on them. I
Mm.
noticed they were based in a country I'd never been to before, and
Portugal, yeah.
Lisbon, Portugal, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their the message that they had shared was very easy for anybody to write off.
Mm.
Anybody, oh, this is just another one of those, you know, build it and then move the IDE out of the way so you
Yeah.
can crack open the code, as
Mm.
often developers would say. How do we crack open the code when we
Yeah.
need to?
Yeah.
Well, that question itself revealed an implicit bias that I had.
Mm.
And once when I sort of uncovered that bias, and when I was able to understand, actually, for the most part, the use cases being required to build for clients do not require that at all.
Mm.
It is again, it's earth shattering. It's quite a large change in focus, a big dynamic shift for me. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
don't crack open the code. You might add integrations, you might
Mm.
add some customization, but the IDE itself is actually quite expansive and has been thoroughly considered by
Yeah.
developers. In fact,
Yeah.
I've thought about it as a tool by developers and for developers, making
Yeah.
life considerably easier.
Yeah. And when you were doing your research, we find, it might not be the case for you, but we find, especially with, like you said, you've been doing software development for a long time, more kind of people, maybe junior to you, when they go from a high code role and they're considering a low code role, the things they might worry about is, okay, if I go into low code, will that limit my future opportunities if I decide to come back or something like that? Did you have any? Because I'm assuming at the time there wasn't that many OutSystems developers in the UK, So did you have that thought that, okay, if I go into OutSystems, um, it might affect my career going forward, or did you have that thinking that, well, I've got so many years behind me in high code, I'm confident if it doesn't work out, I can just go back pretty easily.
I think that I entertained that thought once.
Mm,
Be
mm,
quite honest. It's like, what happens if this whole low code thing doesn't
yeah,
work out?
yeah,
But frankly, the numbers and the my own experiences, first my own experience didn't bear it out. It was like,
mm,
this is actually a really well considered tool.
mm,
It is really well constructed. It's something that has a lot of thought and effort put behind it. As if you set aside low code just for a moment, it is an enterprise toolkit. It is
yeah,
the ability to land and be worked with a group of people, potentially developers, and be and actually folks have success using it. Now, injecting the low code thing. What is one of the biggest challenges to growth, and that is, frankly, the existing development paradigm. And
Mm,
generally, that's born out of bias, like my own bias. It's like,
mm,
how do I crack open the code? Well, that's the
yeah.
most common question that I would get when I was discussing this with existing software developers,
Mm,
folks who are more experienced. The
yeah.
challenge for us was not the less experienced developers, it was actually the experts, right? The folks who had
Okay.
a hard time dealing with how do we handle a certain nuanced use cases when
Mm,
we're dealing with a platform that has sort of handled it all for us and may not have handled it quite like we would have wanted to. So diving into that level of granularity is, the existing software developers definitely would stumble on that. Whereas the the less experienced ones, usually I didn't, there was never an issue, right? Going
mm,
through a number of engagements with clients who they would actually give us their lesser trained, their junior
yeah.
developers, their mid-level developers, and come out of a week of a boot camp, or maybe 2 weeks of a boot camp plus a more advanced boot camp that included architectural concepts and
Mm,
more advanced building ideas and concepts. Yeah, they're the ones who took on those what OutSystems was much more fervently
mm,
than typically the more advanced,
yeah.
more skilled folks. So the idea of a fallback, uh,
Mm,
I entertained it at first. Going back to what I was originally saying, I entertained it at first, but I
yeah.
eventually was like, you know what? I got a feeling low code is here to stay, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that was that was about a year into my tenure at
Yeah.
Out. So I
Yeah.
knew it was here to stay. There was
Yeah.
definitely going to be some churn. Some clients would
Mm,
want it, some clients wouldn't.
yeah.
That was just par for the course for any
Yeah.
independent.
Yeah. You mentioned some clients will want it, some wouldn't. Did you, um, you know, kind of, when you're in those processes of obviously, you know, when out systems are being sold to a customer, there's obviously other vendors, kind of selling their platforms. What were some of the kind of challenges you found coming up against more traditional development?
Yeah, that kind of competition was always the hardest.
Mm,
Competition was not necessarily, hey, we're going to go up against another platform and we need to
yeah.
compete against them. It was more, uh, we have our ways of doing things, and I think we're good. Was
Mm,
probably the one of the more challenging objections, that is,
mm,
to overcome. If you're thinking about overcoming an objection, um, the message that we wanted to parlay and share with our clients was, hey guys, you got your more experienced folks, and they're doing experienced things. You've
mm.
got your secret sauce, right? I don't know, put
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right. You've got specific things that you are doing, and indeed, in a great example, we sold out systems to a software company.
okay,
Now, did they use that to build some of their own cutting edge software? No, they didn't.
yeah,
They used it for specific internal
mm,
B2E use cases.
yeah,
So it's sort of like, hey, we're gonna build custom one-offs or specific scenarios and workflows around
yeah,
our existing internal systems for the
mm,
benefit of our employees. We see the value there, but for what we're doing externally, we've got this, right? And
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's a great pragmatic approach
Mm,
that particular client made that decision.
mm. And did you, when you kind of were coming across customers, like you said yourself, you'd heard of low code. Did you get much kind of customers who were aware of low code and kind of, what it offered, the level that it offers compared to some people doesn't think low code really offers that much until they really get an expert speaking to them.
Um, when I first started, most of the organizations I spoke with were very, very new to the concept of
Mm,
low code as
yeah.
an actual enterprise tool. So most folks were in my position when I was doing this. If you maybe a better term than sales engineering is almost like
Mm.
product evangelism,
Yep.
right? Everybody in my early days at OutSystems, um, they were like, okay, where do we, when do we crack open the code, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
sort of that mindset. Um, so there wasn't this everybody knows about OutSystems
Mm.
until a good bit later, right? I was
Mm.
doing straight up evangelism of low code as a concept and of OutSystems
Yeah.
specifically. A little bit later on, as I had moved into a role that required more architecture and expertise, we started
Mm.
seeing more and more more scenarios where you were competing against other low code tools
Mm.
like Mendix, like
Yep.
Appian, and others. And um, that's when it became very clear to your question. This is
Mm.
really starting to catch on.
Yeah, yeah,
Clients are actually seeing the value more and more, and they're wanting to make sure they get the best bang for their buck.
yeah,
They understand what are they getting, and they're going to put it through its rigors from a more, almost like a market driven perspective than,
mm.
hey, is this actually think does this thing actually work?
Yeah, yeah. And you said you did the boot camps. Were the boot camps for um customers who'd bought the platform and then you were training their devs, or was it more devs just kind of, coming to OutSystems who kind of were from a high code background looking to learn OutSystems?
It was more the clients who were looking to train their developers.
Okay.
And to be quite frank, OutSystems was, and I applaud OutSystems for this. They were so confident in the viability, the value proposition of their product,
Mm.
that anybody who was willing to set aside somebody for a week's time for full immersion, even if they weren't existing clients, uh,
Mm.
they would allow them to join that boot camp,
Yeah,
just because they felt like it was actually a really powerful selling tool.
yeah,
It was a
yeah,
tool. Once you've gone away and you've done it for a week, um, then a lot of your questions will have gone away by the end of that
yeah,
week.
yeah. And in the time you were working at OutSystems, obviously, you were there for 4 years or just over 4 years. In that time, they would have had certain releases in the platform that they didn't have when you started. Were there some key features that, that they did in that time that you thought, oh, okay, these guys are really stepping it up? You already said kind of you'd realized they're here to low code's here to stay, and all these things. But were there any kind of key features that in that time you thought kind of helped it get to that next level?
Oh man, have I got a story for you?
Okay, cool.
This was version 7 when I had was about to be released when I first joined, and
Yeah,
so I had never been to Lisbon, Portugal
yeah,
before, and so it was the first visit I was able to get a visit to the office to see
nice,
some in the home crew, as well
mm,
as join the very first next step that I
nice,
got to join
yeah,
in Lisbon. And it just so happened I had heard people just whispering lifetime, lifetime
yeah,
this, lifetime that. And it was
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
what is this lifetime? I had no idea. And everybody, was on the down low, on the serious hush hush until next step.
mm, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Paulo Rosado, the CEO, ended up demonstrating it to us. And what was lifetime? It was a low code tool for DevOps, being able
mm,
to manage dependencies, manage migration of the code, the models across multiple environments. Standard being dev, QA, and production
mm,
as a abstract concept. When I saw the demo of it, Paulo showed it. It had that moment of there was, anytime you do a demo, you're like, man, this is a demo. I've done it. I've done it a number of times, but there's always
yeah,
that possibility it's not going to work. And we
yeah,
had that
yeah, yeah,
moment of,
yeah,
is this going to work? Is this going to
yeah,
work? He hit the button, and the button essentially what it did was it migrated all of the entire model from a dev environment to a production environment. That included included the database scripts, included the interfaces, all the business rules, DLL files, and everything else. Compiled it and ran it on the production environment.
Mhm.
So we had that moment. It was the very first demo I'd
Yeah.
ever started, and uh, everybody's for a moment nobody breathed. We were sitting in an auditorium, and everybody's like, "Is this gonna,
Wow.
is this gonna
Yeah.
work?" And
Yeah.
part of it, yeah, I was sitting there hoping it worked, just
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly. And I was brand
Yeah.
new to the company, and it hit the green little green indicator.
Yeah.
Worked, and then he opened it up and showed it in the production environment with a different URL. Let me tell you, everybody cheered. There were people
Yeah.
standing on their feet cheering. And while I'm cheering, to your question,
Yeah.
that's when I recognized, man,
Yeah.
this is this is really
The real deal. Yeah.
this is the real deal. This is
Yeah.
not some uh, home site. This is not some
Yeah.
fun. This is a really interesting thing. And I took that experience away. I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
It's been over 10 years. But
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing that, that you went on that trip and kind of you left with that feeling that, you still kind of remember, which is really good.
yeah, it's some memories you never lose. And that was a really good one.
Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously then from there you moved on to Appian. How was your kind of, obviously there are two low code platforms. How was your kind of when you started Appian, you'd obviously now worked with one low code platform for quite a bit. How was that process for you?
Yeah, when I joined Appian, it was mainly because there was some career opportunities there that I
Mm,
didn't see at OutSystems, and there
yeah.
was nothing against what I was doing there. I just saw some areas for my own personal and
Mm,
professional at Appian, and I, from backing up a bit, from a technical and
mm,
architectural perspective, both of those platforms make a lot of sense, right? OutSystems has a model-based approach. The IDE, again, is fantastic for building a model. You click the green button and it creates all your stuff for you, and it builds it, deploys it into a pre-existing environment. Or Appian's approach is just slightly different because it
mm,
has its own rules-based engine and its own server, so that there isn't a model-based approach. There is the approach that everything you're building is actually what is being deployed by virtue of the rules engine that is running on the background. So you can
mm,
literally install an entire Appian server on your machine if you wanted to, build everything, and the interface looks exactly at what you want it to, how you want it to look without a model, right?
mm,
It's a little bit of a different approach than what OutSystems does. I mean, both really good tools. When I joined, they were relatively new
mm.
in the low code space, having sort of jumped off from BPM
Yeah.
and light document management and
Mm,
rules management. Their competition at the time was Pegasystems almost exclusively.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
by jumping into low code, they brought in a whole new realm of competition, and it
Mm,
forced them to continue iterating and
yeah.
growing, getting better as a platform, or they would not win straight up use cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I learned about Appian is while low code, just as if you just threw down the concept of low code,
Mm,
it's a really cool concept. But oftentimes, low code is just a set of abstractions that every company,
yeah.
every organization, like an Appian or an OutSystems or maybe Salesforce or ServiceNow, they build into their own existing capabilities if they have their pre-existing heritage. OutSystems didn't really have that. They didn't have a
Mm,
pre-existing heritage before low code.
mm,
It was always, sorry, we were building a couple of
yeah.
capabilities, but now let's just focus on the entire development ecosystem.
Mm,
Whereas
mm,
Appian was like, all right, we've got BPM. Let's put low code concepts on top of our BPM, on top of
yeah.
our and on top of some of our interfaces and things like this. And um, it ended up working pretty well.
Mm,
It's not an easy thing to build a set of capabilities that
yeah.
are draggable and droppable and configurable,
Mm,
right? And at the same time, continue growing what are that core functionality that sets you apart a little bit. I think Appian did a pretty good job of it with continuing their own, some of their core functionality, BPM being one
Mm,
of, and continuing to grow some other capabilities. Some of their capabilities including automation, for example,
mm,
RPA, process mining, and others, trying to incorporate that into their platform. Salesforce has done something similar, and
yeah,
I've seen some of the extensions that in low code and automation that ServiceNow is.
yeah.
Uh, so, taking it aside a little bit, it's something that's pretty exciting for me because I see low code, I see abstractions on top of a lot of great capabilities, a lot of great functionality that companies like ServiceNow, like
Mm,
Salesforce, and others have rolled out. UiPath being another example,
yeah,
like
yeah,
the space, has a very strong low code set of
yeah,
capabilities, making life really easy for software developers also.
yeah. And what was your role at Appian? Were you a developer, or were you similar to
Yeah,
what you did at OutSystems?
yeah. I started out as a solution consultant, so a
Mm,
little bit more sales engineering, and
mm,
I had the responsibility of building out a number of POCs and custom
mm,
demos. So think smallish projects
mm,
that
mm,
you didn't necessarily need to worry so much about architecture best
mm,
practices,
mm.
but you needed to know that they were there. What you needed to know, you need to know the rules before you break them. There's a
Yeah, of course.
right? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was my role, was mainly selling with clients, helping them see the feasibility
Mm,
of Appian as a platform. In fact, something about my personal nature.
mm.
I'm a natural competitor. I'm big into
Okay.
fitness and
Yeah,
competition. I thrive in competition, even if I don't win. Right? I love the
yeah.
aspect, and that was one of the things that Appian sold me on. Is you're going to be expected to compete
Mm,
because we're in a busy space. We're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
competing against Pegasystems. We expect we'll be competing against other low code platforms.
Mm,
Depending on the use case, there will be others we might compete against. So we have to
yeah.
know the entire ecosystem, who it is we might be
Mm,
competing against, but also how do we slide alongside an enterprise client's
yeah.
existing ecosystem,
Mm,
because we can't expect to replacing everything that they have.
yeah.
So they've got their Salesforce. How do we
Mm,
put our Appian alongside of their Salesforce?
mm,
They've got a service now. They're not replacing that. It's got valuable stuff. How do we put Appian alongside service now? So there was a complementarian, if you will, as well as a competitive approach that
mm,
we need to take in order to stay viable and stay in the
yeah.
conversation with clients.
Mm. And how did you find that, considering you did kind of similar things with both platforms, speaking to clients about the platform, um, did you find there was more of a challenge with the Appian side, or it was kind of people took to it just like they did with, OutSystems?
Because the goal was a little bit different. Low code
Mm,
was not always part of the discussion at
yeah,
Appian, even though
yeah,
they were starting to lead with it.
mm,
The challenges were just different. I wouldn't say it was
yeah,
less challenging, but the questions were commonly very different.
mm,
Oftentimes, when we were at Appian, there was already a use case in mind, and we would
mm,
tend to qualify out certain use cases and really try to focus on something that was a little bit more process driven, a little bit more automation focused.
mm,
Potentially workflow,
yeah,
multiple teams within an enterprise. Maybe potentially even a larger organization that needed better visibility into what's happening. It's a different way to look at it, but once you get that internal focus of, hey, we got users, we have groups,
mm,
we've got a set of tasks that need to get done, and Appian is going to be our engine to help us to get there, to get faster, to get more accurate, be able to report and understand
yeah.
where are the flaws, not only in what we are doing, but where are ways that we can improve just
Mm.
as a unit.
And did you find there were certain domains that favor Appian?
That changed a bit.
Okay.
Um, we talked to business units more than anybody else
Mm,
when I first started. Um, Later on in my career at Appian, we because our focus shifted a little bit more towards low code and
mm,
automation, we often talk to the automation people, right?
yeah.
I really like intelligent automation, right? I like
Mm,
the idea of low code that includes RPA, low code that includes other capabilities like intelligent document processing. And so some of these clients are already rather mature and they have a number of capabilities that includes
mm,
art, includes a number of things. And so being able to talk to them, not just the business units, but the
mm,
intelligent automation centers of excellence was the area that I tended to focus on a little more, right? So I started with the business units, but then kind of shifted into an automation discussion
mm.
with the COEs,
Yeah.
technologists, architects, and the analysts on that side.
Mm, okay. And then you moved on to Iron Mountain. Um, in this role, how much kind of involvement is on the low code side?
It's a bit less.
Mm,
Right now, it's a matter of building low code constructs on another set of automation
mm,
capabilities, which is primarily intelligent document processing. You know, the value proposition that we are growing at Iron Mountain is the ability to be highly flexible,
mm,
building out a one or many machine learning models for the purpose of classification, intelligent extraction of data out of unstructured data, right? Structured data is, typically documents, right?
yeah.
Documents, invoices, maybe invoices aren't the best example. Maybe
Mm,
they're claims, or maybe they're contracts that are just paragraphs and reams of data that would be very difficult even for a human to
yeah.
extract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Intelligent
Yeah. Yeah.
building a set of low code concepts and workflows to make it very easy for somebody who is not a data scientist to become productive, to get at that data that's necessary, volumes and volumes of data, maybe for the purpose of archiving and making it easy to call up data, but also potentially in the service of downstream workflows,
Mm,
as well as maybe in the service of sending data into the client's systems of record as well via a microservice architecture that's built into the platform. Right, the microservice
mm,
architecture is there. Now it's the work is now making this a very configurable, draggable, and droppable set of components to make it easier for guys like me who's
yeah.
admittedly not a data scientist
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to do that and become productive.
That's amazing. And yeah, for someone who kind of, you've been working with low code for 10 years, over 10 years now, you know, you've obviously seen kind of a big shift from when you first started to now. How do you kind of see, and you're very invested in low code. How do you kind of see the future kind of with low code? I know the US is a very big low code market in the world, not only with the two platforms you're worked with, number of platforms are out there, small ones, big ones. How do you kind of see the future for low code?
Yeah, in order to thinking about the answer to that question,
Mm,
it calls me back to the realization that I had is that low code is a set of abstractions. It's a collection of abstraction. It requires a development team, requires product managers and QA folks and everybody to put their heads together to bang out something that maybe previously was a one-off solution to a
mm,
business problem. Like a Salesforce CRM tool or ServiceNow ITSM or what RPA has brought. Um, they these guys, I applaud them by the way because they blazed a trail. Makes it they didn't just have a one-off solution. They decided to make it far easier for lots of developers who
mm.
are not necessarily the seniors, not necessarily the data scientists, not necessarily the ninjas in
Yeah.
code. to be able to follow them. They have built out a set of capabilities, right? The draggable, the droppable, the
Mm.
configurable stuff to make life a lot easier. As I mentioned, when I was talking about my own personal experience, it becomes a situation where those capabilities, those innate value props that ServiceNow, Salesforce, and OutSystems and Appian bring they make sense, right? These are
Mhm.
things that just make sense. You drag and drop, you put some configuration in there, and you bring it together in this really cool collection with other things, and now you've got a working product that solves a business problem.
Mm.
Where's the future going? I see that, but I see a whole lot more. I see a whole lot more. I see more companies jumping into it. In fact,
Mm.
I see like we've seen, even in the past, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, we've seen companies getting into low code.
Mm.
Blue Prism, UiPath
Yeah.
for RPA,
Yeah.
Automation Anywhere being another example for RPA. BPM, Appian, Pegasystems have rolled out expansive low
Yeah.
code features still running over top of the existing engines that they have.
Mm.
Same with ServiceNow and Salesforce. A number of no code citizen developer
Yes.
focused tools that are out there as well. I expect that those, while some of those have been rolled out in fits and starts with varying success, I suspect
Yeah.
that no code tools are going to get greater traction.
Mm.
And one of the things that's even more exciting for me, as I mentioned with my tenure at Iron Mountain, as I mentioned, what I'm doing
Yeah.
is automation from a even a more unstructured approach, right? Pulling data out of stuff that doesn't it is normally very, very difficult and highly manual. Maybe documents, but maybe not limited to that. Maybe
Yeah.
audio, video, multimedia, being able to put models together as well as workflows that automatically creates for you what might be your model for extraction, form-based extraction, text-based extraction, and then doing something with that data that we would previously have to write a bunch of stuff,
Mm.
drag and drop a bunch of processes, some human in the loop automation in order to fix data. Well, what if all of that were being done automatically and we're able to automate a number of that manual effort to so that the data is simply there and allows us to build models on what needs to happen next. That's something that's pretty exciting to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
There's so many possibilities. We've been
Yeah.
doing big data for such a long time with the struggle to process it and make intelligent decisions based on that data.
Yeah.
I'm excited how low code converges with that big data in order to make that something really useful
Yeah.
uh, to expand on where we are today in terms of innovation and intelligent automation.
Mm. And the other, obviously you've worked with a few platforms. Have you ever kind of thought to look at some of the others like Mendex, Salesforce, ServiceNow, how to play around with it?
I've had a I've had a certainly a couple of experiences with both of them, right?
Yeah.
I've had a little bit less experience with ServiceNow.
Mm.
But I've seen multiple demos on them. I've
Mm.
played a good bit with UiPath as well as Blue
Yeah.
Prism in my experience, and Appian also has an RPA tool.
Yeah.
Um, you, there, I've noticed a commonality when it comes to the way things get done. You gotta get through a quick, almost like a learning curve to know that
Yeah.
there's a specific paradigm you've got to get used to with Salesforce. There's a
Yeah.
specific paradigm you got to get used to with some of the no code tools.
Mm.
Just the same, maybe Uncork or Betty Blocks are examples. Um, but having played with them, I see some value while you almost have this understanding that these things are growing and their developers, their core
Mm.
platform developers are iterating, taking use cases and
Mm.
improving on them. I'm having experience with like the Salesforce and others. I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited about
Yeah.
where market's headed. I
Yeah.
also expect that even while there's more players in the space, I suspect the market that will continue to grow.
Yeah.
The need for low code will always be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who kind of, you've been around it for a while, you've been a trainer, you've spoken to traditional developers, a question kind of we like to ask everyone is, you must have come across people who hate on low code, so what would be your kind of message to those people who kind of still are not convinced?
Um, I was a skeptic myself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and like I mentioned, and for every instance of OutSystems today, there was a Microsoft front page 20,
Mhm.
25 years ago, and certain people have always been a bit jaded. I'm thankful that some of that has been sort of reduced over the years, and it's become more of a ubiquitous term and more accepted.
Yeah.
What's the message I might have for people who are skeptics today? And that is, if nothing else, let's be pragmatic in our approach. Maybe examine the use cases where an OutSystems or an Appian have been successful.
Mhm.
Look at their use case, look at their case studies, look at what they have done. Like maybe have a look at some of their demos, right? What their
Mhm.
online demos, and where have they been a great fit? Considering, and you have always these considerations, right? You got
Yeah.
licensing, you got go live dates. If you're truly pragmatic in your approach, you may say, okay, there's a certain number of use cases we can use low code for, and there's others where we're going to stay in open source. We're going to
Yeah.
use you're going to use our Java tools. We're going to use our uh, .NET, our Python
Yeah.
for certain things as well. But I'm not going to just toss out the baby with the bathwater, right?
Mhm.
There's some things where I can get significant benefit if indeed there is possible benefit, where less experienced developers mixed with some folks who are best practices.
Mhm.
Because I always recommend you understand the rules before you start breaking them, right? But
Yeah, of course.
uh, if you're able to take an approach that is, a highly pragmatic one, look at what's been built, look at what's been done, and then be able to apply that in your own ecosystem. Where does it make sense to implement a low code and an enterprise platform for your group, for maybe
Yeah.
it's your team or your teams? I've seen a number of, where large organizations are considering low code to roll out to their citizen developers.
Mhm.
And that is not just in one location; it's global, right? They want
Yeah.
to want to be able to build it a specific manufacturing organization. They
Mhm.
want to so that they can have low code applications rolled out specifically for each of their plants. And I find that an exciting thing, right? What it
Yeah.
what it comes down to is almost like organized and beautiful chaos, right?
Yeah.
People building things to help their folks, their business people. And
Mhm.
so they're democratizing software development just a bit more while still maintaining a center of excellence to ensure
Yeah.
best practices are being followed.
Yeah. That's great.
Uh, so it's more like, hey guys, let's just be open-minded about what
Yeah.
what we're trying to do. Let's consider the possibilities. It's not something that I would have. I would almost say, hey, let's resist the knee-jerk reaction to
Yeah.
cast that out completely and talk
Yeah.
about where the best fit is.
Yeah, I think your the thing you mentioned about checking out the kind of case studies is also quite a good tip. They can kind of see on those platforms, websites, so many stories of customers and what they've delivered.
Yeah, I've got a number of them myself, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah,
number of very highly successful organizations. The software companies always, when I talk to people about
mm,
a software company
yeah, yeah,
who's been a software company for a long time,
yeah,
actually buying out systems,
yeah, yeah,
that tends to blow people's minds.
yeah. It is really cool. And just a final question, for you is obviously, you've had a great So like, long career, the last few or last decade have been in low code. What's your kind of, future aspirations, goals, achievements you're looking to achieve in kind of, short, long term?
So personally, I'm still a competitor, and
Mhm.
I still love fitness. You know, I got
Mhm.
my family, my 9-year-old daughter to
Nice.
try to keep up with, and
Yeah.
you got to stay active to keep up.
Yes. Of
Uh,
course.
as you already know, for us, right?
Yes. Yes, I do.
You understand that quite well. Um, on a professional level, I've always considered myself a bit of a tinkerer and a
Mm.
disruptor, for better
Mm.
or worse, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm my personal, from from a work perspective, I get excited about working with a team that aspires to use low code tools
Yeah.
that creates that I referenced earlier, beautiful chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love innovating. I want to disrupt the status quo a little bit when it comes to the tech ecosystem. Not
Mm.
so much that we're just, you know, tearing
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
down for the sake of tearing
Yeah.
things down, but
Yeah.
building on, but doing it in an approach that is strategically uh, both helpful in the short term as well as the long term for clients as well as for my own employer, right?
Yeah.
I I love the idea of helping clients sort of accelerate that digital journey.
Yeah.
If it's automating what is highly manual processes, if it's giving visibility, where visibility in terms of how are things going with our organization, with our very important business
Yeah.
process, giving that visibility.
Yeah.
Um, I think the experiences I had with, Appian, OutSystems, Salesforce UI,
Mm.
Path, and others, like I've actually had a good number of experiences using AWS Tech Stack to Google Vision.
Yeah.
Um, I I like to be pragmatic, just like I suggest
Yeah.
develop. I like to focus on what's going to be the best tool for the job based on
Mm.
my understanding the use case. It certainly requires greater discovery to know more about the use case and the background for it.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that clients are successful. I'm really excited about intelligent automation and potentially working with a number of centers of excellence as well as building out my own.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to tracking the future for you for sure. Well, thanks for taking the time, to speak to me and telling us about your career and everything you've done and your views. It's really helpful. And I think it'd be definitely good to speak again in the future for sure.
Thank you, Feroz.
Great. Well, keep in touch and we'll speak again.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Isaac.